Today's collectible spot, we are having a look at the NECA Toys quarter scale Batman v Superman Batman figure. As you heard correctly, Spot's going to be having a look at the quarter scale version release of the Caped Crusader. I know Spot normally doesn't do a lot of quarter scale figures, and I've mentioned on the reviews that I have done quarter scale figures that for me the hard part is always just the size. These are just so big figures that it's hard to really put them anywhere on display unless you have an allocated bookcase that has a high enough shelf, or really just shelving on your wall. You can probably accommodate these, but the figures are just really big. Then there's always exceptions to the rule, and Spot does pick up ones that he really does like the Xenomorph alien that we just recently looked at, and of course the Caped Crusader in the quarter scale release as well. Ben Affleck here is presented in, well, almost 2 feet of a figure, give or take about 2 feet or so. Packaged artwork, you can see the front has an open window that has the smaller ears, cowl shape of the open window, which I think is a nice touch. Spin the figure around to the side, or in this case the box around to the side. Several different poses that you can get Batman in. He's also down below showcasing himself with one of the batarangs. And then from there we can spin around the figure to the back. And the figure includes 2 pairs of hands, 2 batarangs, and a grapple gun with 2 tips. And again, a nice showcase of the figure itself. To check out more from the folks over at NECA Toys, make sure you head over to www.necaonline.com. Spot's gonna fix up his backdrop. I'm gonna get this guy out of packaging, and when we come back, we're getting a better look at the Batman v Superman quarter scale Batman. There's more heading way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so just before we have a look at the quarter scale Batman, let's have a look at the accessories that come included with the figure. For starters, Batman comes with his grapple blaster, or grapnel gun. Painted fairly nicely, actually. A nice gunmetal gray, and then they've put a wash to it, a darker wash of the black color, just to kind of bring out some of the details. He's also got the nice, somewhat subtle brown handle there. As well, included with the grapple blaster, grapple gun, he comes with a couple of little arrow tips, or grapple tips. You can fit them either into the side, or you can also attach them to the under barrel component, or the under barrel section of the gun. Very, very nice though. I still feel like it always looks like it's really small, but watching the movie, I mean, it's an accurate scale to Batman holding it. Speaking of holding, Batman also comes with 2 batarangs. I'm surprised actually that the batarangs are different from one another. I have to go back and watch the movie, but I thought you always used more so like this style of batarang, but he's got 2 different variations. One is more like a slightly curved, possibly more sharper blade batarang, and then one is more the angular batarang that I'm more familiar with. And this one has also the additional lines etched into the batarang. So you get 2 variations of the batarang. The Caped Crusader also comes with a pair of additional interchangeable hands. The hands that he's currently holding, or currently in his sockets, are completely closed shut. There's no accessories, no weapons that you can hold in his hands, and that's why these 2 babies come in handy. Initially, I thought getting the grapple gun into his one hand was going to be problematic, but sure enough, NECA thinks it over and comes up with solutions to those problems, as they include a removable thumb. So you can very easily slide the grapnel blaster into the hand, and then simply just replace the thumb over top of it. This makes obviously a lot more sense with a, oops, put it on the wrong way. It makes obviously a lot more sense doing this with a larger figure. You couldn't do this with smaller figures, but it's smart that they would have thought, hey, let's just remove the thumb so that a collector doesn't have to fight to get the blaster into his hands. Well thought out, NECA. The other hand, of course, as you could probably guess it, would be catered for holding the batarangs. He will hold either one of them perfectly fine. sitting him inside the crevice or opening slot of his fist there. That then brings us back to Batman himself, and I say this countless times, and I'm sure I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this in this review as well, but looking at how much of a job NECA does on their figures, why, oh why, can we not get them to do movie property figures? Like, looking at this Batman and then not unfortunately having one I can use to compare it to because I don't know where my Mattel ones went. But I mean, clearly, night and day comparisons between this and what we ended up getting as retail released movie figures. Now, granted, this one's not perfect because one of the big glaring problems I have with the figure is it's just way too tall. We did initially get a quarter scale Batman Begins Christian Bale Batman, and if you also remember as well, NECA also shrunk him down to a 7-inch, more accommodating size for many collectors. As great as this Batman is, I hope that they will eventually shrink this guy down to something a little bit more manageable in a 7-inch figure. Let's have a look at his face. Batman's face, for the most part, is really good. There's a side profile look at it. I find the coloring is maybe a little bit off around the flesh area of his mouth. It seems like it's a little too tanned for my liking. But it's definitely a much better job of giving us a more accurate Ben Affleck Batman than certainly some of the retail released figures that we have gotten in the past. Spot's also standing up for this review, so if you hear my voice is slightly off, it's only just because I'm standing up. But the face is really good. I like the texturing that they've added to the cowl, so it's not simply just a smooth cowl, and you can see all the little textured details around, especially around the brow area. The eyes are also done extremely nice. I feel like his jaw sticks out maybe just a slight bit too much. Like if we look at right here, it seems like it sticks out just a little too much, but I then looked at the movie, or I looked at images from the movie, and that's actually not that far off than what it looked like in the movie with Ben Affleck's mouth. It does slightly stick out like that. So I can't knock that for the jaw, but I could say that maybe like the flesh tone could have been maybe a little on the lighter side and not so tanned. As for the rest of Batman's outfit, it's interesting that the top portion of him is extremely soft. I guess it's to accommodate the articulation that's in there, but to be honest, it doesn't feel like it moves all that much. So I'm wondering why this is so soft rather than being a dense plastic. The coloring of his outfit also is a little more accurate to the movie, and not that weird color that Mattel decided to color their retail release Batmans. If you remember, it was kind of a weird off gray. This is a little more accurate gray in color. Still got that bulky mass that this particular Batman's outfit is known to have. But as a whole, I think they did a great job. I love all the little more textured Bat costume to more to the smoother rubber that we've gotten in previous Batman designs. The Bat emblem is also quite nice too. It does feel like, though, and I don't know if it's just me specifically who might see this, but if we look at the Bat emblem, I feel like the Bat emblem ears are slightly more to the side. Maybe am I the only one that sees it? Like if we take the line divider right up the middle of his chest, the ear here I feel should be a little further over. It does feel like the head is slightly misaligned to the line. If this is assuming this is the symmetrical line of the middle of his torso, it does feel like the ears of the cowl, or the ears of the Bat emblem, is slightly a little too far to the left. It's also got the scratches in there as well. It's not, again, a very clean, pristine costume, which I kind of like to it. Batman is a more in the trenches fighting Batman, so it makes sense that his outfit is a little bit more catered to that. Then when you get to the utility belt, which is actually a separate loose piece altogether. I mean, you can spin it completely around, but it's also got that texture work there too, accented really nicely in the gold. The gold and the darker brown, almost black areas of the pouch portions of his utility belt. If you are wondering though, if we spin the figure around to this glorious cape, I might add, the back of the figure doesn't look like there's any areas where you can house the grapple gun or the batarangs that are included. So unfortunately, unless your Batman is holding it, there's really no means around it. While we're also at the back of Batman, let's look at the cape. The cape has two different types of material. The inside is more a matte material, and the outside, I guess the side that you're going to be seeing on the cape itself, has a more slick presentation to it. I can't quite pinpoint the type of material that is, but it reflects light a lot better than the interior. And I do like that they use two separate fabrics rather than relying solely on one. It's also, let me also add this, it's a nice touch that these are fabric capes and not plastic capes. This particular Batman is not really in the same vein as the Christian Bale or Michael Keaton Batman. I don't think I would ever have the Bat cape on the front. This particular Batman, I would more so have the cape flowing behind him. And actually the cape flows very nicely, and there's just the right ledge gap between the head portion and the torso. There's just that little bit of ledge here where you can get a good flow of the cape right draping over it or tucked underneath it. The rest of the body, like I said, is primarily a gray and the black, where the accents of the gold on the gauntlets as well as on the hands themselves. When it comes to Batman's posability, let's see if we can bring we'll just bring the camera down slightly here. There we go. When it comes to his posability, his head isn't so much on a ball joint. I mean, basically when you move the entire head, you're basically moving the entire cowl portion of him as well. Shoulders hinge out, but as you can probably see, it's very stiff to move the arms outward. Forward and back isn't so bad, but moving his arms out can be a little difficult. He has a swivel point on the bicep portion of his arm. He does also have a double hinged elbow. He has a rotation at the gauntlet or the glove portion of his hand. And he does also have a hinge and a rotation on the individual hands. Now when you get to his torso, again, his torso is rubbery, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot of... I can't really pinpoint an actual bend point of his torso where I can feel that crunch. Instead, this whole section here feels very rubbery. I don't know the reasoning behind it, because again, you're really limited in what you can do with his torso. You can still rotate his waist easy enough, but the torso kind of perplexes me, I have to admit. When it comes to his legs go forward, back, and out. He has also a somewhat swivel at the top of his thigh. He has the equivalent of, I think, of just a single hinge on the knee. The boot doesn't rotate, but the feet do rotate, as well as a hinge up and down. The NECA quarter scale figures can be a little difficult to review, because really everything about them works well. The sculpt is fantastic, they have loads of posability, and they have loads of accessories, so really by that breakdown, it would seem like a figure that you could easily recommend. But then you get to the one negative, and there's only generally one negative to the quarter scale figures, and that is simply just their size. These figures could be immaculate and fantastic pieces, which they generally are, but if you're simply somebody that can't accommodate a space for a figure this large, then usually it's an instant pass. And that's the hard part with figures like this. I could not have asked for a better Ben Affleck Batman figure. I truthfully wish that this was the kind of Batman figure that we could have gotten instead of the Mattel releases that we got on pegs. And those figures are actually still there, whereas I feel like if NECA had done these right from the beginning, these figures would have flew off the shelf. Ultimately though, NECA now releases this as quarter scale, and this is really their only outing right now as a Ben Affleck Batman. It's a fantastic figure, but again, like that little small hiccup, the hiccup being that the figure is just so incredibly large. Spots reads comments down below that you guys always leave, and when it comes to quarter scale figures, there's always that divide where one half of the collectors usually look at this as an instant pass because, quite frankly, they just don't have the space for it. Well, fans of the taller scale figures, the quarter scale figures here, love the fact that these are giant, larger than life figures that you can put on the shelf and they take up a lot of space. So really there is the divide. There's the divide. And I hope that NECA will eventually give us this guy in a smaller 7-inch version as we got with the Christian Bale Batman Begins Batman. If they can do it for that Batman, let's hope they can do it with Ben Affleck's Batman right here. If not, might be the only opportunity to get this guy from NECA. It's just the question of whether he can actually fit in your display. Today's Toy Spot, we were having a look at the NECA toys. This was Batman v Superman's quarter scale Batman. A beautiful figure, just really big. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more toy spots, collectible spots, and other videos heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.